It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcasting and interviewing two amazing attorneys. I know if you're looking at them right now, you think they're from ZZ Top, sharp dressed men. They are sharp dressed. Their names are Gregory Michael Dell, JD, and his partner there, Stephen Francis Jessup, JD. Gregory Michael Dell is the managing partner of Dell Disability Lawyers for more than 30 years. His law firm has helped hundreds of dentists nationwide to collect long-term disability insurance benefits for more than 21 years. He's passionate about helping people take on large insurance companies so that they get the benefits they contracted for. He graduated from the Washington University in St. Louis Olin School of Business with a major in accounting. That is so cool that you know your numbers. That's probably why you're so good at it. He received his law degree from Benjamin Cardozo Law School in 2000. Following law school, he was an assistant state attorney in Broward County, Florida, where he sharpened his jury skills. Since 2003, he's established a reputation as a disability insurance expert by battling every major disability insurance company and helping thousands of individuals to collect short and long-term disability insurance benefits. His YouTube channel, youtube.com/disability attorneys, has more than 600 videos and our almost 6,000 subscribers enjoy weekly videos about how to protect your disability benefits and get paid. He's also a husband and father of 3 boys. He believes exercise is an important part of a healthy lifestyle. While some may say he takes exercise to an extreme, his dedication and commitment is demonstrated by his completion of the Ironman Florida Triathlon, 5 half Ironmans, and multiple marathons, including New York, Chicago, San Diego. My gosh, I did the Arizona Ironman 3 times, and it almost killed me all 3 times. So I stopped because my life insurance policy said we're going to deny you if you try it again. His partner here, Stephen Francis Jessup, JD, is a partner in the Disability Insurance Division of Attorneys Dell and Schaefer, where he has worked for the past 13 years, exclusively handling disability insurance claims from the application stage through litigation. He has extensive experience in representing dentists who are filing for disability benefits or having issues with the disability insurance carriers. What started in 1979 as 2 former prosecutors representing individuals with serious injuries has expanded to a nationwide law firm representing sick and injured individuals with their claims against either insurance companies or large corporations. They currently now have 15 attorneys, of which 9 are nationwide disability insurance attorneys and 6 are Florida personal injury attorneys. His firm's nationwide disability insurance division, led by Gregory Michael Dell, began representing disability claims in 1994. I mean, I could read on and on and on. And the reason I invited you guys to come on the show and wanted you to come on the show is a quarter of our listeners are still stuck in dental kindergarten school. They don't even know where the door to get out is. And then when they get out, they have to make this decision for the first time. So I was hoping that you would start at the kindergarten dental school level. What are we talking about? Why do you got to buy it? All that, and then gradually go up to the sophisticated, where you know I have a policy and I'm disabled and they're not going to pay.
Fantastic. I mean, even though what we do is help people once they get to the level where they're ready to file, and unfortunately, you know, they're not able to do the duties of dentistry. Highly recommend that dentists get long-term disability insurance. It's arguably more important than life insurance. You know, in today's world, you're more likely to survive with any kind of sickness or illness that you get. So the long-term disability insurance is real important. And for the young dentists, even the dentists who are in residency, the availability of long-term disability insurance is really good. And there's some really good coverage out there. It's available. And people used to say, well, you can't get the old stuff, like the own occupation definitions of disability. And it's just not true. Dentists can get really good policies. They're available out there. It's just the question is you got to go to the right agent and you got to get the right company.
You know, and I think to that effect too, a lot of times the American Dental Association, you know, they come to the schools and try to sell them the ADA sponsored policy that's through Great West. And Greg and I have had a lot of experience. A lot of dentists did sign up for that early. That policy is far from ideal. And a lot of times the dentists, you know, they buy it and they think that that'll cover them. But that comes with a lot of pitfalls in itself from our experience and the way they write the policies. So it's always a really good idea to look at a handful of disability insurance companies Because in a lot of ways, it's like buying a car. You can pay for options you want, increased benefits and things like that. So it's always wise to look. And even Greg said, while people are in dental school, there are situations if they start writing policies for them at that time. I've represented dentists who unfortunately, didn't finish school when something happened to them that resulted in disability. So it's really never too young to start looking into the coverage, because the younger you are when you get it, the lower those premiums will generally be for you as well.
So you're saying the American Dental Association uses it says apply for you said it's a Great
West.
Huh, I don't see that the Great West, the name.
I think they changed the name, Steve, recently.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I forgot what
Because I haven't seen any of the new ones. I've only ever seen the Great West ones.
Huh. Yeah, so these organizations they try to do group purchasing to try to get a better deal for their individual members, and sometimes it backfires. Like there was one state, I don't want to say the name because it'll get back to Wisconsin, where they were doing the cybersecurity stuff, and then they all got hacked into. If they provide a benefit with a company and then it doesn't turn out to be very good, that can backfire. But who is this one? It says
and I'm on the ADA's website, and it shows Great West and the ADA. So insurance.ada.org is where they will talk about that policy. That's a very common one. A lot of
tell me the
dentists got
website
early
link.
on.
What's the link?
It's insurance.ada.org.
Okay. Yep. That's
Canada Life Assurance is what I think they did a branding name change to.
Yeah, well, and this one's still showing the Great West.
Huh. Okay.
Anyhow, that American Dental Association policy is not a bad policy. It's just not as good as what you can get if you were to get a private policy from another carrier.
And who do you recommend? So the ADA's use it is through Great West. That's what the insurance company called.
Correct.
Great West.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there it is. The ADA members' insurance plans from Great West Financial offer competitive rates and superior coverage with great options to meet your needs at every point in your dental career. All the insurance plans are available exclusively to ADA members as special group pricing. So, is that just for disability or? It's got life insurance, term, disability income protection, office overhead expense, supplemental medical insurance for dental students. So all their products are through Great Western, right?
Correct. From my experience. Yep.
Okay. And what do you not like about that one where you like other ones better?
I think the biggest aspect that I've ended up in litigation on several times for dentists who have a multitude of insurance carriers where the other insurance companies were approving benefits, but the ADA policy has language in there about having a requisite objective medical evidence of the condition to the satisfaction of the company. So it's left up to interpretation as to what objective medical evidence of your disability satisfies their needs. A common instance in what happened with one of my clients, carpal tunnel syndrome. He had surgery on it, continued to have problems with it. The surgeon he went and saw in Tampa is one of the leading experts in the surgery and the condition. And that doctor, the EMG studies weren't showing it. The doctor's basically in a deposition said, I can cut someone's wrist open and see where the problem would be. You don't need this test to prove it. ADA dug their heels and say, no, we want the proof in that objective test, and we couldn't provide it. So they denied benefits, and that was under one of their overhead policies, where this doctor, all of his other insurance companies were paying him. So it's this objective medical evidence requirement to the satisfaction of Great West. That's where I see most of the hiccups happening when it comes to them, reviewing the claims.
Interesting. So let's go through this. There's a lot of insurance. There's disability insurance, dental liability, malpractice insurance. There's liability insurance on your business and malpractice insurance. And you guys don't sell disability insurance. You just enforce the contracts that they had.
Correct.
And what companies would you recommend to someone listening to you right now? A quarter of the dentists aren't even a member of the ADA, but which ones would you like?
That's a that's a real loaded question. And not to be vague, but if depending upon when you ask the question, the behaviors of the companies change. And from day to day, you have some disability insurance companies that say, we're going to write private policies to dentists. And then they switch back and go, no, we're not writing the class of dentists right now. So there are your typical leading companies that write these policies for dentists. And, if I give you some names now, I don't know if, someone watches this and says, well, I'm going to go right now and contact that company. But the bigger private companies that sell for dentists would be companies like Guardian, Northwestern Mutual, Mass Mutual, Emeritus. I believe Ohio National is selling for dentists as well. And those would probably be, Steve, anyone else come to your mind?
Whether Standard or Principal would probably
right, Standard and Principal as well.
Standard of Principal?
Standard and then Principal. So two different companies.
Oh, okay, two different companies. Yeah, I think there's that. I think humans always, like any animal, herd animal, they kind of form circles, and there's just kind of that group feeling of satiation that you didn't really do your due diligence and look into this policy, but I'm sure all the people at the local dental society did that for you. But if you're on, but I've talked to many dentists that said, well, yeah, I got endorsed, but I felt like it was only, I got the endorsement because I gave them money. If I gave them the best business deal, I mean, at the end of the day, the ADA has 500 employees and they want to bring in a ton of revenue. And all those nonprofits, when they go to their practice management courses, they keep telling them and scolding them, you got to quit being reliant on member dues. You want to diversify so you don't have to have member dues. So as they see, like the American Medical Association membership has gone down from like 90% of the doctors to like 20%, and they're trying to diversify. So a lot of times that endorsement might have a lot to more do with money than quality. Do you agree with that or disagree?
I would agree. There's always an incentive, and you're right. I think even in the legal profession, like membership in the American Bar Association, is down. They have their group plans as well, sponsored plans that they do. So there is always that incentive to how do you, make money off the consumer.
Right. Yeah, their final company, they want a lot of revenue streams. So the first thing you said is, it's going to be company dependent. Well, how would you advise a kid who might, who wants to get a good policy? How should he decide which of these companies to go with?
It really comes down to, for these individuals, they work with a professional insurance agent who sells these types of policies. And what we've had many, many dentists do is once they get policies, they'll go to an agent who's not a captive agent. Meaning like most Northwestern Mutual agents are captive. They'll basically only sell you a Northwestern Mutual product. I'm sure you can ask them to see if they'll sell you another company, but most other agents are free to sell you multiple different types of policies. So they can present you with 3 or 4 different policies. A lot of times you're going to get very similar policy language. So for many people, it comes down to price because it's not, just like everyone can relate to auto insurance because you're required to have it. You call Geico, you call Progressive, you call State Farm, you get 3 different prices. And 9 out of 10 times, the person who's getting quoted chooses the one with the lowest rate. And some people may argue Geico's better than State Farm's better than Progressive. It all varies. So with the long-term disability insurance coverage, no matter who you go to, most of the companies are going to have their standard policy. But from there, they offer options. And we always say it's like buying a car. You can get a sunroof, no sunroof, power windows, fancy seats, massage seats, leather, no leather, custom colors. Well, long-term disability insurance policies are the same way. You can choose the options you want, whether you want an own occupation definition of disability, whether you want residual disability benefits, whether you want an elimination period that's 60 days, 90 days, 180 days. And the better the options you buy, the more the premium is going to go up.
Okay, well, I'm just going to start asking you questions. This is so exciting. Usually, whenever I'm talking to an attorney, they're filming me and billing me $400 an hour. But it's so fun that finally I get to record the conversation. Can I bill each of you $400 an hour, or is this a group? Or are you on one of those PPO insurance plans? Dennis asks. He says, should you exercise future increase option, FIO, every time you can? I know there are many threads here on Dental Town whether disability insurance is a good thing or not. Keeping that aside, if you already have disability insurance and you have purchased FIO that can be used up to 5 times only once a year, should you use it up as soon as you can, or there should be some indicator flag that can tell you to increase it, something like healthcare injury, and when it recommended exercise, blah, 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 blah. How would you answer that?
Personally, I'm an abundance of caution kind of guy. So once that option is there, increase it. So many times we have gotten policies from, a dentist who didn't expect to be going on disability. They call you, I have these policies. You look at the face value of what the policy's worth is, and they are horribly, horribly underinsured, and that's the benefit at that point when they're looking to file. So in those FIO options, if you can support, if the numbers support the increase, and you have the finances pay the increase on the premium, I'm of the opinion, insurance is one of the things you hope you don't want to have to use, but if you do, you want to make sure you have the maximum amount. Myself personally, when it comes to the FIOs in my policies, I've exercised every one when they became due, just to protect in the event something does happen. Because most of the time, the writing can be on the wall. For dentists, it's physical. We see a lot of neck problems, wrist, hand, back problems, whatever the case may be. So you may realize that these problems are going to start to impact you down the road. But just as many times we may see that, you could get in some type of accident that prevents you from working. So I'm cautionary. I would advise increasing the FIO when you have the opportunity.
Yeah, and Howard, you can't get enough of this coverage. For anyone that has the opportunity to get an FIO, I mean, if I had $1 for every doctor who said, no, I didn't exercise the increase, it would be a tremendous difference. So you can never get enough. And you should know that when dentists get this coverage, you really can only insure up to 60% of what you're earning, 60 to 66%, because if you use after-tax dollars to pay your premiums, then these benefits are not taxable. So that's the way in which you can get yourself to be made whole, is by not deducting the premiums from your taxes. And when you get the benefit, then ideally you're replacing your income. Now, most of these companies are capping a monthly benefit at around $25,000 to maybe $30,000 a month. So your dentists who are very successful, they can't get enough coverage from the standard inline disability insurance companies. There are excess coverage policies that are written by companies like Lloyd's of London, but that's a little bit different animal. But for the most part, a dentist who is making over $300,000-$400,000 a year cannot get enough coverage.
I'm actually thinking about filing a claim for disability for myself. I think I have an intellectual disability. If you have an IQ below 70, that's me, but I just don't know if that's in Celsius or Fahrenheit. Do you know? I think that's a wild question. I'm sure a lot of people never even heard of an FIO before this podcast. So you guys seem to be saying this is disability insurance, something you should have, and you're saying to exercise the FOIs to get more. Explain why. And is that FOI, is the option coming because now you're not straight out of school working for an associate, barely, making 100 or so a year, but now it's 5 years later and your practice is doubled, you're making twice as much income? Yeah. Is that how this works?
The FAO is actually, in many carriers, it's an option that you buy at the time for the right to get additional coverage without having to requalify for medical. The only thing you have to meet is their income threshold. You have to earn a certain amount of money to qualify. And the idea is that when the dentist bought the policy, they only had enough income to qualify for what they bought. Now they tell you after certain intervals, whether it's every year after your fifth year or every 5 years, it varies. Sometimes it's on the anniversary of your policy, you have the opportunity to increase. And everyone who has those policies gets a letter from the carrier and says, do you want to increase? If you do, there's no medical, and here's what the premium will be. Just send us a copy of your earnings so that we can see you meet our guidelines for underwriting for income. So that's how those come about. And like you did just ask, yes, a dental student or someone who's younger who gets the coverage only has so much income. And remember that just like life insurance that a lot of people know about, premiums are significantly cheaper when you're younger than when you're older. And most of the disability carriers sell you a fixed premium. So if you buy this policy when you're in your 20s in dental school, your premiums will stay the same. But I guarantee if you call that same company when you're 45, premiums are going to be double or triple what they were when you were in dental school.
And okay, so that's great. Let's go to more questions. What they're saying, anyone care to share what their monthly disability insurance premium costs and what monthly dental benefit you would receive paying it? I'm curious to know how my policy compares with others. Feel free to share. And the first guy says, I pay $1,200 a year and my coverage is $9,000 a month if I become disabled. But of course you don't know.
Wonderful rate.
It's what?
That's really good. That's for $1,200 a year for $9,000 a month. That must be a very old policy. That's great.
Or it could be some young 25-year-old kid, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I pay significantly more.
Yeah, I tried to buy life insurance. The last time I bought life insurance policy, I just said this is crazy because, the when you buy it, when I first had. In fact, by the way, today's the birthday of my youngest baby, my fourth baby boy, Zachary, is 26 today. But 26 years ago, when you bought life insurance policy, it was just a lot for no money. And then I remember when I turned 40, it's like, damn, those rates went up. And then I turned 50. Well, this year I turned 59, and I'm already looking at what happens to the prices when I go to 60. And at 60, it's like, I don't even know if that makes any sense. I mean, it's like you're so when we see this person say, I pay $1,200 a year and get $9,000 a month coverage. Well, hell, maybe some 25-year-old kid that just walked out of dental school, right?
Or it could be a group policy. It could be from his employer. It all depends. It could be like buying the basic bare bones car, like we were talking about. You can buy the same model car for $50,000, option it up, and it's twice the price. So you can't generalize that because there's so many factors. Plus, you have to do the medical. They look at your pre-existing medical history, like you said. Assuming a 25-year-old has nothing, that's going to be the premier rates. So that's really cheap. I don't know that people should take that as a guide for $1,200 for $9,000, but
the post after that said I get $9,000 a month and it costs me $5,000 annually. But give us the max about what you can buy. You can only buy what percent of your provable taxable income to the IRS?
Yeah, I'd say 60% to 66 2/3 is about the cap, and everybody has their own guidelines, but that's about what it is, making an assumption as to what tax bracket you are in.
So you could only purchase dental disability to replace your income, basically 2/3, 60 to 66%, because you would want to have them incentivized that they're going to lose money on this deal. You wouldn't want to say, well, if he makes $1 a year and if he becomes disabled, he makes $2 a year. That seemed to be a very bad incentive.
But yes, you don't want to incentivize someone to go on disability. But
and I can give you the world-class example. I'm sure you've heard of this. This was way back in the day. I think it was in dental school when I heard this. But the country of France, their government decided that they were going to add lower back pain disability where you can't work to the state's pension of services and all that stuff. And when they passed that if you couldn't work because of lower back pain, you would get like 80% of your pay without working. And all of a sudden the country of France went from like 1 to 12% overnight. Had so much back pain, they could no longer go to work. So incentives matter. And when people, especially about socialized healthcare, when Canadians brag, well, my mom had a bypass and it didn't cost her $1. Okay, well, who's advising that in the theory of economics since Adam Smith in 1776, Wealth of Nations? Nobody would advise that. Every MBA program just vomited out the window when they heard you bragging about that, because if the Canadian had a 10% co-payment, she'd be shopping around in prices. She'd say, well, I'm not going to do it downtown Montreal or downtown Toronto. I'm going to go out to Alberta or they would, and then there'd be so much less embezzlement and fraud because everybody's looking at their bill. If I got to pay 10%, I'm looking at my bill. If I don't have anything to pay, I don't know that he billed me for 2 artificial knees and they only did 1. So I mean, incentives matter. So you can only purchase about 2/3 of your income. What else do they need to know?
In terms of, I mean, that's the cap in terms of what you buy. And then what they also should know is that they definitely want to get an own occupation definition of disability, which means if you're unable to perform the substantial material duties of your occupation at the time you become disabled, then you qualify. So that means if you cannot practice dentistry, assuming that's what you're doing at the time you become disabled, then you will be paid, and you can start an entire new career that doesn't require any of the same skills that were limiting you from, performing dentistry, and still collect your full benefit. So, for example, the extreme example is I've had dentists that were unable to practice, stopped, got into real estate, got some very great deals, and went from making $200,000 a year to $3 million a year, and still collected their full, disability benefit. And that's what's known as totally disabled.
So what's the opposite of an own occupation rider?
Generally, that's what's known as like any occupation. If you're disabled from doing any job, really, if you're going and shopping policies from any reputable company, that's not going to be an option to you. The closest to that, when Greg said get an own occupation policy, sometimes we call that a true own occupation, because they will have the policy. A lot of companies have the policy written as a standard of you're unable to perform the material and substantial duties of your job, and you're not employed in another occupation. The true own occupation takes out that second caveat. I have a policy that has that rider. So if I can't practice law anymore, but say I go do something else, I can still collect that whole benefit. So any upgrades you can get and riders you can buy protecting your own occupation, those are always wise investments.
Okay, you guys are lawyers. Are you, remember, I'm just a journalist. I'm just reading you the questions, but this one's going to kick you right in the head. Are you ready?
This will be good. Why do you charge so much, right?
Well, the thread is called Cost of Disability Insurance Lawyers under Disability Insurance. He says, hey, I was wondering if anyone had insight to the fees that disability lawyers charge. I spoke with the company regarding how claims work and which companies are better for disability insurance. As we were talking, I asked, how do you get paid? In short, I was told that they get 1/3 of the payout for the disability. I was shocked. I have a policy for $15,000 and was told they would get $5,000 a month for term of the payout. So if they had to pay me for 10 years, the attorney will make $5,000 per month for 10 years. That's $600,000. Am I missing something? Did I hear wrong? How could that be? I would have paid all the premiums and have a policy that is based off my income and my standard of living.
Yeah, so that's a great question. There's no set fee structure like there is with Social Security disability claims. In the Social Security world, when someone hires a lawyer, the government caps a fee at 25% up to about $6,000.
Okay, say that again. I'm not that fast of a typer. Say that again.
I was just making an analogy to say in the Social Security disability world, there's a cap on attorney's fees that say 25% up to $6,500 or something like that. We don't do Social Security disability work. When you deal with a disability insurance policy, you're basically dealing with a breach of contract. The closest analogy that people can relate to is if anyone's ever bought property and yet they entered into a contract, I'm going to buy the property for this, you're going to sell it to me. and then one person wants to back out of the contract, and you file a lawsuit, and that's called a breach of contract action. What happens in disability policy is I paid you, insurance company, premiums. You accepted my money. I'm telling you I can't work. You don't want to pay me now. I'm suing you to enforce the terms of the contract to pay me. That's assuming someone's hiring you to handle a denial of claim. In our law firm, we represent just as many people with denials as we do with applying for benefits or managing their claims as well. And the fees are never set at a certain percentage. It varies with every single client based upon facts and circumstances. So someone who said $15,000 a month, I got denied, someone charged me a third. I don't know, did that person even say they got denied? I don't know if they were getting help applying or what their situation is, but I can tell you that these cases are in a litigation scenario are highly litigated. Hundreds of hours in litigation, the typical interrogatories, requests for production, tons of depositions, high expenses with experts, and then you end up at a jury trial, which can be days to weeks. And the insurance companies, which on average make $1 billion a year in profits, battle them by paying their lawyers, well over $100,000 in attorney's fees. So the stakes are high because the lawyers take the cases on a contingency fee basis, which means there's no fees or costs unless the lawyer wins. Most people in a disability insurance claim don't necessarily want to take the risk on and pay their lawyer hundreds of thousands of dollars with no guarantee that they're going to win. So I can tell you that someone who's $15,000 a month and gets denied, the fee is usually not going to be a third of the benefit. But in certain states, and we litigate these all over the country, regardless of what the contingency fee percentage is, there's many states that provide an attorney fee award, which means that if you win the case, the court will issue an award at an hourly rate for the attorney's time that was put into the case, and that would be granted as a credit towards lawyers. And we've had cases where our attorney fee award following a judge's verdict has exceeded the amount we would have even received on a percentage fee. So when 99.9% of the clients contact us and they're denied, they're in a position where they're happy that if we have the ability to help them get benefits reinstated for them. They're not always necessarily so worried about, it's $15,000 a month and I may have to pay my lawyer $4,000 or $3,000 a month, because they're happy to get back on track. And they kind of get themselves in a position where they realize, if I don't have assistance, I'm going to end up with nothing. So it's not something where, is it fair that they have to hire a lawyer and pay money? No, not necessarily. Did the insurance company put their back against the wall and try to take advantage of them? Possibly, but there's a handful of attorneys out there who specialize in this area of law and have the ability to go up and battle against these insurance companies.
Wow, that is and the whole fair thing. I've never been into the whole fair thing. I'm still looking for my first. Is life fair when the entire galaxy gets sucked into a black hole? Is it fair when an asteroid crashes into your planet at 50,000 miles per second? God, on YouTube, my boys are always sending me these nature videos, and if you saw what lions and tigers and hyenas did in the Serengeti, and your first thought is life is fair. My God, that is just crazy stuff. But that's interesting. People only know what they know. If you do your 10,000 hours in plumbing, they'll even tell you, I don't know a thing about electrical. I can't get one guy in my house who does plumbing to do a little electrical thing. I can't get you know what I mean? Roofers. Everybody says, dude, I only know one thing. And so I want to switch gears. Is there anything else you want to say about disability? Because I wanted to switch to cost of business overhead insurance.
No, we're here as your guest to answer the questions for you. And we could, like I said, on our YouTube channel, just to pitch that as an educational source, it's unusual. Lawyers are kind of boring. We're not like the sexy channel that people want to go to, but over the years to have millions of views, and we put out a video, and from your podcast, you put it out and you look how many people are going to view it, and we average hundreds of views on our videos just within days of putting them out. So people are out there looking for the content. We have the attention of all the insurance companies because the stuff we do affects their sales, and people look at us as knowledgeable and leaders in this field, and we put a lot of resources out there. So we encourage people to either check out our website, which is diattorney.com, or check out the YouTube channel. And there's a lot of become educated. That's what we always say. The more educated the dentist is, the best position they're going to be in if they need this disability insurance.
You know, and Howard, just one more thing on the disability side of it, the policies. I mean, I've done it more times than I can count over the past 13 years, where I'll get a call, be it from a dentist or anyone says, "Hey, I got quoted this as an insurance policy. I'm not sure if it's good coverage." I've had agents contact me to speak to their clients about any questions they may have about the coverage they're purchasing. So that's something that, you know, if a dentist is watching this, is thinking about buying a policy, is not sure if they're getting the right thing, whether they think, oh, the agent's just trying to upsell me, whatever the case may be, you know, always willing to take a look at that and discuss with them, let them know if they're purchasing the right riders, or if there should be another thing they should look into with it. So questions on those disability policies and buying the coverage, you know, those are things that I've answered for people plenty of times in the past as well. So that's always a potential avenue.
Okay, you have so many videos. I love your videos, and that's why I called you. Tips to prevent a unum disability benefit denial. How much neck pain does it take to qualify for long-term disability? Northwestern Mutual Doctor and Dentist Disability Benefit. A guide to writing a pill. I mean, just you have so many to pick from. I mean, what is your start talking about some of these videos? Which one do you think my homies should hear about the most?
Probably the one talking about dentist disability claims, which you'd have to search and find there. And
okay, so I just in the search box put dentist. Let's see what that does. No, I don't know how to do that. Oh, here. Okay, it says dentist. Dentist. There you go. Dentist disability. Okay, so let's talk about this one. Dentist disability benefit claim information video. I love the comment. I'm a 67-year-old dentist, had minimally invasive spine fusion in 2018, was on short-term disability offered by employer for 6 months. My employer closed dental section of the company, and we all been laid off. Now I'm not eligible for long-term anymore and left. Jobless surgery doesn't seem to be successful. My gosh, there's so many things you could talk about, but I don't know if that's a good question to ask. And then another one is Northwestern Mutual Doctor and Dentist Disability Benefit Legal Help. Legal tips for dentists seeking dental disability video. That's a
we
good
just
one.
released that video about a month ago, the legal tips for dentists seeking disability benefits. And that was another one of our law partners. And that's about a 16-minute video that really covers a lot of the basics on and provides some good tips for a dentist who finds himself in a variety of positions, situations, whether he's applied or he's having issues or he's not, you know, all kinds of scenarios to help keep them on claim. So there's some real good tips in there.
Now is the overhead liability that I was talking about, is that part of the disability too? Or, okay, that's part of it too? Well, let's go there then.
Business overhead, yeah, you have a business overhead disability policy, which basically is for the dentist who owns his own practice and wants to cover his covered overhead expenses, which is a defined term within the policy as to what those things are. And basically, if you get disabled, and depending upon it has its own definition of disability, if you can't perform the duties of your occupation, then this policy will pay your covered overhead business expenses. And again, covered overhead business expenses is a term that we have litigated quite a bit as to what falls into that category. And every policy is different and very specific. And I know you're going to ask me next, well, Greg, what is the covered overhead business expense? And basically, generally what it usually covers is whatever items would be deductible under the IRS code as a business expense. So that's a good general summary of a covered overhead expense. It does not, very important, cover the wages of the dentist himself or herself unless they buy a rider that covers the dentist for a certain period of time for a business overhead policy to cover their salary. The other thing is the business overhead expense policies are usually only 12 to 24 months period of time. So, and again, that's a decision when you buy it, how much you want. The policies are tricky because they only cover for as long as you continue to have the business. So, what do you do in the case where you're a solo dentist, which many of your listeners, I know they are, many of the members of Dental Town are solos, and now they're unable to perform the duties of their occupation? How do they keep the practice running? The covered overhead expense policy is not going to pay the salary of someone else who does what they do unless they have a rider. So they have to get a temporary dentist to come in, but I still recommend these policies, assuming the doctor thinks that if I can't work or I'm going to be out for a certain period of time, I'm going to keep the business running because it will pay the expenses of all of the staff. It will pay your electric. It will pay your rent. It will pay the interest on any type of equipment loans or things like that you have, and all of your other typical expenses you have. So it can be very helpful, and it can be a very high dollar amount as well.
So in the United States, 10% of all the people live in California. It's the same as Canada. It's a tenth. And the main competition in the dentistry is Chicago-based American Dental Association and Delta Dental Insurance. And then California has Delta Dental and the California Dental Association, and they have what they call TDIC insurance companies, and they sell disability. What did TDIC stand for? I forgot. My gosh.
Temporary disability insurance
but what do you think of the California Dental Association's disability insurance?
I'm not very familiar with the California Dental one. If it's TDIC, California requires short-term temporary disability insurance for its employees. So I have not seen much of that TDIC. So I'm not sure it's something that is covering dentists as much as it may just be covering inline employees. So I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, the TDIC, I just looked up. The TDIC stands for the Dentist Insurance Company, which is owned by the California Dental Association. And it's in the same building, which, by the way, when I got to school, I was so proud of dentists because when you went to Sacramento, that was the tallest building in Sacramento. And the CDA, what I was talking about earlier, to diversify their income, they said, well, we already got all these dues coming in. Why don't we leverage that and we'll do a real estate deal? So they built the tallest building in Sacramento, and then they rented out just part of it, and I mean they occupied part of it, and then rented out the rest. But they're a massive force in dentistry. But they say you are not invincible. Your dentist relies on your health for your livelihood. While disability is a prospect no dentist wants to face, choosing TDIC Insurance Solutions disability coverage now ensures that in the event you do need in the future, you'll have the freedom to focus on healing instead of financial. What's covered? Disability insurance provides you with a source of income when you are unable to continue to practice due to cover. So what's their difference? Non-countable unless premium's not paid. Benefits paid even though you can still work but cannot practice dentistry. Own occupation disability, your choice of benefit periods and maximum benefits, future increase options with no medical underwriting. TDIC Insurance Solutions disability now includes the group purchasing power of MetLife insurance plans. So anything there grab you on what they're saying?
Well, it's also interesting because I went over to the website as well, and they're proud to offer plans from the following carriers: Guardian, MetLife, The Standard, and Emeritus, which were those companies we had discussed earlier with regards to it. Now, the MetLife one I'd be interested to see because generally, and Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, they stopped writing any type of individual. So this would have to be some type of group sanctioned policy through MetLife. To have anything on the disability side, but they're offering those things like the own occupation, choice of benefit periods and maximum benefits, things like that, your FIO, future increase option. So they're basically just trying to consolidate. I also see they do workers' comp and liability insurance and all that type of stuff there. So like you were saying earlier, it's a way to try to have multiple streams of revenue coming in.
Yeah. Okay. The next question this guy asks, he says, Guardian Premiums Gone Wild. It's a play on Girls Gone Wild. I'm reaching out to see if I am overpaying for my disability plan. I have had a Guardian-owned occupation plan for 5 years. I started when I was 32, totally healthy, no meds, no children. I was on graded plan, but my level premium will soon be $6,500 a month for $6,200 monthly payout until 67. The cost of the premium will more than double. How is this right? Anyone willing to share their plans, rates? So again, money is the answer. What's the question? Everybody's asking about the premium and the benefit.
Did he say $6,500 a month for $6,200 a month or $6,500 a year?
$6,500 a month for a $6,200 monthly payout until he's 67. So he's paying $650 a month.
Oh, $650 a month. Okay.
Yeah. And the next guy says, I guess mine averages out to be $414 a month for a $10,000 a month benefit, but I've had it since 2006. Doesn't seem crazy to me. I assume you're about 37 years old, which means they're on the hook for potential 30 years of payments. That would be over $2.2 million and have the best plans out there.
Well, I would say that does sound a little interesting. I mean, I own Guardian policies myself, and I just got done paying the premiums on mine. I'm only going to be 41 this year, and I've had them since my mid 30s. And I pay less in annual premiums for more of a monthly benefit. So that'd be interesting, whether there is something from a medical standpoint or whatever the case may be. I think if they're still in touch with their agent who sold them the policy, it's certainly worth a call to the agent to find out what the heck's kind of going on there.
Okay, so I want to ask you, I mean, there's two schools of thoughts here. Get this when you're young and get it when you're young and not on meds and all that stuff and everything's healthy and hang on to it forever. But the next question this guy asked on Dentaltown disability insurance, should I keep my disability insurance during my residency years? He got accepted to a residency, an ortho residency. He's really excited, but he's trying to cut his overhead and he's thinking, should I let it go till after my residency?
I would say keep it. I represent not dentists, but I do have a handful of doctors on disability. They went on disability during their residency. Those policies were enforced, and that's basically what they've been living off of.
And also, it turns out that banks require you to get a disability policy if you're going to get a business loan. Is that correct? I mean, that's what I've always heard. I'm not a banker, but
some do.
Some do.
Some do, yeah.
So if you're going to buy a practice, but by the way, that's kind of crazy, but it's God dang, it's been a crazy year. Did COVID affect your business? I mean, did your world change because of the pandemic as far as the world of dental disability insurance and all that? Did you see a lot more people all of a sudden say, oh my God, I know what I'm going to do. I'm too disabled to work.
Are you saying people or dentists?
Well, your whole industry, well, let me tell you where that comes from. Okay, it's not going to surprise anybody that in my 32 years of going around lecturing in a gazillion dinners with dentists, you always hear the story about old Frank. Yeah, he's claiming disability, but last time I went over his house, he's out there playing basketball and blah 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 blah. So it seems like half the conversations about disability with dentists is about moral hazard. They think people are collecting it, that they're rigging the system. So my mind went to, God, what better time if you're going to fake a disability? It would be in the middle of a pandemic when the governor has your office closed for 2 months.
I think we have not seen any increase among dentists. And actually, we saw a decrease of claims during COVID. Most people do not want to go on disability because it's a significant income cut. Most dentists are, as Steve said earlier, are significantly underinsured because the reality is they get a little bit of coverage when they're in residency or they're young dentists, and then they get hopping in their practice and they're busy doing what they're doing and the expenses are adding up and unfortunately, a lot think nothing's going to happen to me, or I'm doing well. If something happens, I'll be fine. And then disability insurance is the last thing on their list. Now, it's not our job to try to sell it. And I know people try to push it to them, but it's not sexy. And a lot of dentists in particular don't want to buy it. But so this misnomer, because what the media wants to show is the person who's taking advantage of the system and then gets caught. That's the story. It's not 100 stories about the person who really is hurt and can't do their job. So that's the perception of people. But I will tell you, and we talk about this all the time, the disability insurance companies watch you like a hawk. Do not think that if you're getting $9,000 a month, that they are not watching you at least a couple times a year. When I mean watching you, they're hiring a private investigator to sit outside your house and follow you around for 4 to 5 days with the video camera at every little activity you do. And if you are seen doing one thing that's inconsistent with what you told the disability insurance company or your doctors, they will cut you off in a heartbeat. So most people, there is very little fraud out there that goes on. And if it does go on, it does not last long, especially that's the difference between government and private. These insurance companies can afford to spend, what's the big deal to hire an investigator and pay the investigator $1,500 when you're paying a doctor $8,000-9,000 a month for 25 years? It's nothing. So they're going to check up regularly on the claimants.
So is it true? I mean, do a lot of banks need you to have disability insurance to be a hedge on the loan for your business? Is that a common thing or not really?
It's only common if it is a business loan and you're getting a loan on equipment or a loan on your building for your practice, or you're taking a practice loan to buy another practice. Yes, it is common. It's also common for them to make you get life insurance as well.
Huh. And also, does the when you have overhead expense disability insurance, would that also include the mortgage on your business? I mean, does that cover your business loan?
Yes, it can.
It can.
At a minimum, it depends on the policy language, but at a minimum, it covers the interest, and it can carry loan. I litigated a case a few years ago that actually went to a legal opinion. I'm just thinking if I have a confidentiality agreement, which I think I do. The insurance company laughed in my face. The doctor had a loan for about $300,000. He came to us before disability. I advised him to not do the formality of closing this practice, keep the loan open, keep the practice. We're going to use the business overhead expense, and we're going to pay down that loan. And they argued to say, well, he's not treating patients anymore and he doesn't have a practice anymore. And I said, well, he still has a license and he still has his business and he's still filing a tax return and he still has the exposure to this loan. Because just because you stop working doesn't mean the bank says, okay, don't pay us anymore. It doesn't work like that. So we litigated that case and we won under that particular policy where they paid the principal and interest, even though he wasn't doing anything. But many dentists, unfortunately, shut their practice down, close the whole shop, have no exposure anymore, and then want to claim the policy benefits for covered overhead. And the disability company says, we're not going to cover it because you don't have a practice anymore. So it's a lot of strategy and skill that has to come in order to maximize the policy language.
That is, there's so many deals. So this guy just asked this question and he says, again, it's, thinking of dropping my disability insurance. I feel like we dentists get hammered from every direction. It's license renewal, DEA license, disability insurance. Well, I have all three due this year, not to mention association fees, which are now no longer tax deductible. I just got my Great West renewal for insurance. On the back, it has a statement about mandatory working 20 hours a week. Well, I'm not even working 20 hours a week anymore. So what do you recommend? He's an older guy. He's winding down. Again, I didn't write the question. I'm just reading it. How would you answer that one?
You want to answer, Steve?
I mean, if he's an older gentleman, he's kind of winding down. And if there is that requirement that he's working at least 20 hours to even be eligible for the benefit, then it's a matter of, is it worth paying the premiums if you're maybe only expecting to work a couple more years? So there has, even in the legal profession, lawyers that we've worked with, when they got closer to retirement, they're like, well, I'm paying all these premiums. It's not like necessarily I'm going to need to use this. Or, if I do in the next couple of years, I could have retired anyway. So I think it does kind of become a cost benefit analysis as to where you are in your life and in your career. And if you're winding down and the premiums just don't make sense and you don't have any medical issues that you think may result in a disability, or in this case, sounds like you wouldn't even qualify due to that minimum 20 hours work, it might be advisable to just, let it go.
So you care if I just keep reading you questions?
Sure.
It seems like true own occupation, I can make more than I was making before, but with transitional, it seems to be there is a cap. Is that the only difference, true own occupation versus transitional own occupation? Can someone explain? Does that question even make sense?
It doesn't, because we don't know what the definition of transitional disability is, and you'd have to see.
He says a transitional own occupation essentially says that once post-disability earnings equals pre-disability earnings, your disability benefits go away. A true own occupation contract will pay you your benefit if you're working in another occupation, regardless of how much you make. If you are a very high earning professional, transitional own OC may be okay if you don't ever think you'll make as much money doing something else.
Quite honestly, I can only think of one client who is a medical doctor that had a transitional disability definition in her policy, and that was through MetLife. So in my experience, that's not a very common, definition of disability in the policy itself. That income component in a lot of ways sounds very similar to, what you'd see in a residual or a partial disability. You're working, and if your earnings exceed a certain percentage of benefits, generally over a period of time, the insurance company will ax it. So realistically, without seeing the actual policy and the way that would be, it's kind of a hard one to answer because it's not very common language.
But the deal with that one is that the person who bought that transitional definition of disability got a significant discount compared to buying the true own occupation disability, because transitional is kind of like the middle ground to if they bought a definition of own occupation that said unable to perform the duties of your occupation, but not working. Whereas the transitional lets you to be unable to not do the duties of your own occupation, but still work. But then they're going to kind of treat it like a residual income benefit, start to deduct what you earn. So you get what you pay for, Howard, no matter what with these policies. If you don't pay the top premiums, you're not going to get the best stuff. So it's just a function of, if you're a dentist and you think that if you stop that you're never going to do anything else, then you might as well get the transitional and save money. But it's a weird thinking if you're 30 years old and think, God forbid I get disabled the next year or the day after I get this policy, that I'm never going to do anything else.
So I can't believe we went over the hour. But what is a day like in your life? I mean, I was sitting there doing the whole interview about the dentist's opinion. Should I get it or not? And what is it and all that kind of stuff. But what do you spend your life doing? It's basically a dentist has a claim and he has a contract for disability and they don't want to pay out the benefits. I mean, insurance companies, the only thing they do is collect premiums and deny claims. I didn't know that. Are you saying that some of them actually pay their claims? I mean, they don't in dental insurance. It's a joke. It's a joke. But so what is your life like? What are you guys doing mostly?
It really depends when it comes to dentists, the type of claim we're working on, and we limit the number of cases we take because these cases do take a lot of time. So like, for example, right now I'm representing, two pediatric dentists, ironically, in their 40s who have been my client for well over a year and still working. And I've been guiding them through the process of what it's going to take to get them to get to approval. And if you think about it, 45 is a young. But from a dental perspective, you've been practicing for almost over 20 years already in those positions of the whatever it is going on to be a dentist, but you're in those maneuvers. And for the people who have neck problems or wrist problems or back problems, they've been working through the issues because these are doctors making several $100,000 a year who both have around $15,000 a month of benefits and don't want to file disability. So, but I tell them, your claim at this stage is only as good as bad that you look on paper. Because when the disability company gets the claim, they look at the claim on paper and they look and see what's going on with you. And if you don't have a ton of medical treatment and the right doctors treating you and the right information in your medical records, and you don't have a situation going on at work where you've cut back in your responsibilities and you're showing less production in what you do, they're going to deny you 10 out of 10 times. So unfortunately, if you're someone who has chronic pain, which those are the ones who mostly file for disability, it's not the guy or the girl dentist who gets hit by a car and is in a catastrophic a bad accident, breaks their arm, surgery. Those claims aren't hard. The majority of the claims are the ones, the doctors who've been working through their issues for years and years and years, and finally get to the point where they're like, I dropped the scalpel, I dropped the drill, I didn't feel like I can hold the drill, my hand's shaking like crazy when I'm doing a procedure, I can't bend over for more than 5 seconds at a time, I can't stand up, I can't get, sit, stand, can't be in 10 rooms, then I'm going crazy, I can't remember what I had to do from one patient to the next, the real realities of what goes on every day. But it all comes down to having it documented properly, having the right team, and building up to this. So in our typical day, it takes a lot of time constantly going through the medical records, guiding the dentist as to what they even need to tell their doctors, reviewing all the financial records that they have, reviewing all of the CPT reports, reviewing the monthly profit and loss statements. It's, by the time you're all done, you got a stack of paper that's, a good 8 inches tall of information that disability insurance company is going to go through. And that's in the world of preparing. And then it's communicating back and forth with the disability insurance companies. And then, of course, when you get into litigation on these claims, that's the typical standard, litigating back and forth where they're asking for tons of information. They're taking statements of your doctor. They're taking statements of witnesses prior to COVID, traveling around the country, dealing with experts, being in court for trials when those things have. So, it's busy job of being a lawyer, which is almost as if you're asking, what is substantial material duties of a lawyer?
So are these dentists allowed, is it even legal for them to share their disability insurance premium and all that stuff on a website community?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That is fair. Huh.
Yeah.
So when you become disabled, I mean, it just comes down to either they're gonna say they use any of these companies you mentioned, Northwest Mutual, Prudential, Aetna, Guardian, whatever. If you work with them, obviously you're more likely to get your claim denied and not paid unless you have someone representing you. Is that a fair assessment to say?
I mean,
it's very case by case. I mean, there are some cases that are easier, some are very complicated. To give an example of nuance, I spoke to a dentist, I believe it was a week or two ago, and thinking about filing for total disability due to some orthopedic problems. So he's contemplating this date of disability coming up maybe in the next month or two, and he's stopping work. He could probably file the claim, and based on the medical and the information we're discussed, chances are that could get approved. Now, the nuance with it can be that a lot of dentists especially don't consider, especially when you have chronic medical conditions that have been impacting you for years. As I spoke with him more, there's the possibility that as of 2017, he was partially disabled because the medical conditions required him to stop doing certain procedures. So if the loss of income is supported with the medical, there's a chance that his insurance company may owe him 3 years of partial disability benefits leading up to a total disability date. So it's the possibility of seeing where the avenues to maximize value of the policy and avoiding a lot of the common pitfalls and roadblocks of what insurance companies may look for during the process. Every claim is very, very unique. They all have their own nuances, but they're always same. Each insurance company has their own tendencies. So as soon as someone tells you what their carrier is, you can think of the things that they're going to probably hone in on. And so in a lot of ways, we avoid and misdirect to make sure that that doesn't become a problem ultimately for them in the claim.
Yeah, my gosh, that is a lot to think about. Is there anything else that my dentist needs to think more about in this whole issue? I mean, that we didn't cover?
I would think even if you aren't sure about filing or what you may do, or you have a question about your policy because you have a concern, don't be shy to reach out. We, like Greg said, we put out a lot of information because the knowledge is power. This is a very unique area of the law. And there's been situations where I have clients now that, years prior just had an initial consultation. They had some questions and they come back a couple years later as things progress until they eventually decided they wanted to do something about it. So if you do have a concern, or you're thinking that, I have this problem that may result in disability down the road, it always benefits you to reach out. On our website, we talk about our videos. We always provide a free initial consultation. So it doesn't hurt to call if you have a question.
Okay, and your website is DI Attorney for disability. DI is for disability insurance. Mm-hmm. So all you got to remember is disability insurance attorney. It should be an S at the end, but anyway, you might have that get that one rolled over, but so just remember, because I know she's driving a car right now, it's DI Attorney for disabilityinsuranceattorney.com. And if someone has a question, is that the best way for them to contact you, is go to your website?
Absolutely. They can go there. They can call us. We're immediately responsive. Anything they submit through the website comes directly to Stephen or myself, and we respond immediately. And we want to. It's a big decision. It's a challenging decision for dentists because most of them have been struggling for a while, and they're very nervous to give up their source of income because that is their livelihood. And if they knew that the company was going to pay them no matter what, they might have stopped months or a year or so earlier, but then they get to the point where either something happens or they just can't take it anymore and they kind of don't have a choice. So we understand the significant impact, and it's very rare to find someone who wants to jump in and try to do this on their own. It's almost like if you were going to go buy a house on your own without a lawyer reviewing the documents for you. So very common, and the insurance companies kind of expect you to have a lawyer, and especially when we're involved, because we've handled so many, we have a very good working relationship. It becomes a business-to-business relationship instead of a business-to-consumer relationship. So the insurance companies appreciate that. And the dentists, they don't have to do anything except speak to us, and we take care of everything for them.
Well, what I tell them all is the same thing. You know what? When this is what I told my boys, because I have 4 boys. I said, when you're young and single, I don't care what your liver thinks of what you're drinking. I don't care about bungee jumping. I mean, hell, I've taken all 4 of my boys. We've all jumped out of airplanes. I mean, I totally get it. But when you finally made a little bambino and you got a dependent, that's a new reality. And so my deal is like, say you're living with some girl and she's like, wants to get married. Well, why should you marry the girl you're dating? Why? So she can steal half your income someday? I mean, they're just relax and have fun. And if you want to live like that your whole life, just remember all financial planning in 1 second. Don't get married and you won't have a divorce. Don't have a kid. You'll never have to pay for college. You don't have to do all that stuff. But once you decide to make a baby, that's a 25-year commitment. So now you got to get a ring on that finger and get the disability and get the insurance, because it's no longer about you and your little narcissistic party world. And one by one, my 4 boys, 3 of the 4 made a baby. And my gosh, I was so proud of them because they're just the best dads ever. And I'm always telling them, I said, you're a better dad to yours than I was to you. And I mean, so to me, that's a litmus test for, you're single. I don't care if you drink till 3 a.m. and then take a hang glider home. I really don't. But if you got a 1-year-old at home waiting for you, you're his dad. You're his mom. It's time to suck it up, buttercup. And don't worry, before you know it, 25 years will go by and you'll be free again. But, it's a 25-year commitment. You had 3 kids, right?
Yes.
Oh my God. I made 4 boys in 60 months for a decade. I never slept through the night. 4 boys in 60 months. My God, I couldn't believe it. And that's my other advice. Believe it or not, the segue to that is you're always doing the same damn dumb thing where you come out of school and you tell me, well, I think I'm just going to get a job. Well, why is the guy going to hire you? Because he wants to make money off of you. I tell you, it's in the macroeconomics clear as a bell. I mean, the average dentist in America, the owner-operator makes $100,000 a year more than his employee. Well, where the hell do you think that money comes from? I mean, the average general practitioner makes $197. If they own their own practice, it's $244. If they're an employee, they make $147. So I don't know. I can't say anything about you, an individual. That's not how statistics works. But I can tell you, in the country, if you own your own dental office and you're a general dentist, $244, and your employee makes $147. So when you go get a job from somewhere, overall, he's going to make $100,000 a year on you. And you go from job to job to job. 5 years out of school, you've had 5 different jobs. And as you get older, you get smarter and wiser, and you get more adverse to risk, and you're comfortable. And now you're in a situation where you're not young and dumb. You know when you make a family and buy your own practice, when you're too damn young to even know what's going on. I walked out of school May 11, 87, and had my dental office open 4 months later, and the wife pregnant, okay? And it was crazy. But by the time I realized I should have never done this, it was too late. I own my own practice. I'm successful, and I got 4 amazing boys. And what's really hard to explain to a 30-year-old dentist at dinner that's making $150,000 as an employee, she's 30 or 35, and she's like, now I don't know if I don't know. I want a baby, but I don't. Well, damn, you're 30 years old. You're too smart. You're aware of everything that can go wrong in this decision, and it's a much better decision on starting a family and starting a practice when you're just young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, have way too much energy on your hands, and just do it. If you want to learn how to swimming pool, I hope you got an older brother that pushed you in the pool. I have 2 older sisters that are nuns, and it was my oldest sister, Mary Kay, who shoved me in the swimming pool as a joke. And I thought I was going to drown for at least a minute or 2, and then I figured it out. But that's what you do. Just walk out of school, dive in head first. And if you always wanted 3 kids, I hope you get triplets, and I hope you deliver them in 9 months from today. And now the decision's over. You did it. It's a good decision. And as soon as the thunderstorm clears, you'll be glad you did it. So just dive in and do it with the baby and the families. I mean, I turned 59 this year. If I got married this year and she said she wanted to have 3 kids, I would run all the way to Indonesia and hide in the rainforest. I mean, when I go over to my grandkids' homes on Easter, I mean, I'm watching them, and it's like, I can't believe I used to have that much energy. I mean, trust me, when you open up your own practice, it is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Same with the kid. Just do it when you're young and have all the energy, and you'll be so glad you did it. Don't overthink it. And that's what dentists and physicians and lawyers do. I think dentists, physicians, and lawyers suffer from paralysis by analysis because they're so damn smart. Sometimes it's just an advantage to not be that bright and just make the decision.
Well said.
Well said. Oh my God, I got 2 lawyers to sign off on that insane rant. How cool is that? So do it, dude. And like I say, I don't care if you have disability insurance, life. I couldn't care less. But I know your 1-year-old child could care. And, if you got baby Bambino, suck it up, buttercup, because you're now daddy-o and mommy-o for 25 years. That's my rant. All right, guys, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Our
Thanks for having
pleasure.
us.
Awesome.